Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is AJ from the Paladin Journal, and this is another House of Dragon Season 2 review. This time we're covering Episode 6. It's called The Smallfolk. It's directed by Andrij Parekh, and it's written by Eileen Shim, who is a veteran of the show, having written one of the best episodes of the last season, which was The Lord of the Tides, if I recall correctly. And this is a fairly good episode. I was pretty disappointed with last week, and some of the storylines going in I find to be still quite weak for the overall cohesion of the show. But I like this one much better than last week's episode because that one was just like, we bring down the intensity of the pace way down, and it's all just like people are just talking and talking and talking, and you're not really getting any like, fires going off. Basically, there were a few scenes here and there, such as when Alicent is denied the throne as regent, and the small council names Aemond in her place, and the reaction is absolutely golden because she has been trying to portray Rhaenyra as she cannot become the ruler because she's a woman. That was pretty much her shtick in season one. One of the many reasons that she tried to deny her the throne, and now she's suffering the same thing because it's not a matter of who else is in there has her support, but she's alone now, and we continue with that. And there's so much more else going on with Damon's own story, which last week was really bad, I felt, but this week it got a little better. Although I am still thinking that they need to do something. I get that they're following a rough blueprint of the Fire and Blood novel, which is a series of interconnected short stories and novellas or something. But all the same, I feel that, with all the freedom that the writers have and showrunner Ryan Condal has, I think they could have done a bit of a better job, in my opinion, of accelerating his story. Because right now, Damon is lost in the weeds. He's getting his mind absolutely addled, whether it's from some kind of poison or it's some kind of other magical manipulation on the part of Alice Rivers. But his story has been the weakest since he left for Harrenhal. And to balance that, I thought this week got a little bit better, and there's so much more going up because now in this episode, we're starting to see a lot of the politicking, a lot of the spying and spycraft stuff. All of that is coming to, it's moving towards a climax now, which is very important because we just have 2 more weeks to go, 2 more episodes, and then this season ends. Last season was 10 episodes, this one is 8, and this is episode 6. So, we pretty much kick off in a very interesting way as Jason Lannister, who is the brother of Tywin Lannister, who is on the Small Council, and they're twin brothers. So Jason Lannister is leading an army down to the Golden Tooth, I believe is what the area is called, and he meets one of his vassals there, and he has an army with him and everything, and his vassal is like, "Yes, my sire, when do you want to march for Harrenhal?" or something like that, and he's like, we're just going to wait. Why don't you get Prince Regent down here? Why don't you get Aemon down here? Tell him to come with all haste. I'm not going to attack without him and Vagar, to provide support. And the guy's just like, he's just looking around, is like, why am I in this position? And it was really interesting because it kind of, it sets a parallel between, sorry, not between, it sets a parallel with the story going on in Harrenhal with Daemon and Sir Simon Strong. Because that's the kind of position that Simon Strong is in himself, because, Daemon is quite mercurial, and he suspects that, there's something going on with Daemon's mind, and he's making all these insane decisions, but he is loyal to his queen. So that was a really interesting parallel, but they condense it down to those, like, 2 3 minutes or whatever that scene is, and it was really interesting how they played out, especially when they show that Jason has brought in a bunch of lions as well, which was kind of cool to see because while House Lannister, their House Sigil, I believe, is a lion. We've never really seen them use lions in any way. Whereas, with the Starks, we've seen them with dire wolves and stuff. So that kind of makes sense that way. And the imagery with the Baratheons and the stag has been quite strong, even despite, not actually seeing stag on the screen. Although in season one of the earliest episodes, we see a white stag, and it is seen as an omen from the gods. And if you witness it, it's like, you have the blessing of the gods. And that is something that Rhaenyra saw, young Rhaenyra, a Millie Alcock version. And, that should have been the case where, okay, so she is meant to be the ruler. But of course, things don't pan out that way. So, anyways, great use of the house sigil imagery, something that is really not touched upon a lot, but we got it this time. And from there we switch to, I don't remember exactly if this is the direct switch or not, but in my mind, there's a switch where we go see the small council, and Aemond is frustrated. He's angry because he thinks that Jason is summoning him, and this guy, he is completely unhinged. Aegon was weak. He didn't have control of the small council. No one really respected him. He had literally no power. And Viserys before him, he commanded the small council, but as he got weaker, Otto took more control, Alicent took more control, and they had a level head about them, and they weren't rash, they were thoughtful, they plotted properly, and they gave people the respect that was deserved on the council. At least that is until, Aegon dismissed Otto and put Kristen Cole in charge as Hand of the King. And now we see how all of that is just like, just fracturing the small council in King's Landing. Because Aemond is like, he issues orders, he expects them to be followed, and he looms over everybody. He has a physical presence that he makes use of quite well in this scene. And the actor behind him, Ian Mitchell, just fantastic performance. I absolutely love his performance. I hate the character, love the performance. And, seeing him loom over Tywin Lannister and, almost threatening him with a dire consequence if he doesn't follow his instructions and so on and so forth. And then, he's already sent Kristen Cole to fight at Harrenhal as well. And, he's like, I'll come when I want to. You guys go ahead. You deal with this. I'll come later. And then there's a scene towards the end where, Alicent tries to, give him good counsel that you should not rush into things and you should respect what the council wants as well. You cannot just be a dictator, essentially. Even though, he is the Prince Regent. He has so much power, But still, she's telling him to be cautious, but, and she asks him, have the indignities of your youth not been avenged enough, or something like that, which is a really good line. But, Alicent, you don't get to say that, because the indignities of youth, referring to when he lost his, one of his eyes, his left eye, when he lost it in season 1, she was the one who was willing to kill Rhaenyra, or if not Rhaenyra, kill Lucerys over it. So she doesn't get to talk. Everything that is happening to Alicent in this season is all a result of her bad parenting and, just being a bad queen. And she has betrayed her former friend, her sister in name, in every way that matters. She condemned Rhaenyra for something, and then when she had power, she did all the same things. And she took them even further. So Alicent doesn't get to talk, especially when, Aemond, who's quite obviously has a frustration building in him against her, animosity against her. And, he's like, Mother, you're no longer on the small council. You can go. The crown thanks you for your service. And I was like, yes. So last week, she doesn't get to be regent. This week, she's not even on the small council anymore. So Alicent is pretty much out of the picture. She's got no decision-making powers, maybe until and unless Aemond somehow falls, and she has to step in because there really is no one else. In During the meeting, Eamon does tell Laris to summon Otto Hightower back because he is needed in King's Landing, but we don't know if he's going to come back. There's a scene later on where Alicent is trying to get news of where her father is, but he's not been seen in Old Town. He's not been seen in the Reach, and I'm just thinking that is he dead? I would hate for him to be dead already, but we don't know. If any people who have read the book, if you guys know what happens with Otto Hightower, feel free to tell me in the comments. But I think it's going to be a pretty bad sign for the show as the overall story is unfolding if Otto Hightower is dead, because I think despite all his machinations, despite all the shit he's pulled in season one and even season two, if Otto Hightower is dead, that's like, I don't want to see characters die off screen like that. Give them a death on screen. It can be a good death, can be a bad death, can be a an average death for all I care. But if for a major character, they should be dying on screen. And if at least if they are going to be removed from the story, just give them some kind of a death on screen so we know what happens. But other than that, really great scenes with Olivia Cooks, Alicent in this episode, and there's like so much more to come because that is not the end of it. When we ended last week's episode, Rhaenyra and Jacaerys were trying to come up with a plan on how to boost their armies in terms of dragon riders, and they're like, okay, we're just going to look through all the histories here and try to find people of Targaryen descent who can become potential dragon riders. And the first person that they come up with is Sir Stefan Darkland, the son of the Lord who was killed at Rook's Rest, and he's part of her Queen's Guard, and he's been one of her staunchest supporters all through the show, especially in episode 3 when he goes with Rhaenyra to King's Landing. And I thought he was being a brilliant character, understated but really good. He has small scenes here and there, but sadly his story comes to an end because in her own small council, Rhaenyra introduces the idea of using dragon riders from other families because she doesn't really have any more dragon riders available to her, at least not ones who are like of an age to ride a dragon. Her two sons are too young, other than Viserys, and she has nobody else, no one else in her family. Daemon is off doing his own thing. She cannot depend on him, and it's eating away at her. And then even with the Velaryons, they have nobody either. Lena is dead. Lenor is dead. There's Bela, but she's a young kid. She can't exactly be sent off to war, and there really isn't anyone else who can step in as a dragon rider for all the free dragons that are at Dragonstone or Dragonmont, whatever they call it. So she's like, okay, so I want Sir Stefan Darkland because going back 5 generations, 6 generations, his ancestor was a Targaryen, so he has the blood, and we just need to see if he can do the job. One of her counselors is such an ass in this scene, and he's just trying to discourage her. He makes some good points, but the biggest fact is a dragon rider is a huge asset to any team, whether it's Team Black or Team Green. So they have to do whatever it takes, and there's a chance that the dragon that is chosen for Sir Stefan, the dragon may not accept him, but they have to be prepared. And so later on we get the scene where Sir Stefan, guided by the dragon tamers, he goes to tame Sea Smoke, who is Laenor's dragon. And it's an interesting thing because we as the audience know that Laenor is not dead. His death was faked, so he could be removed entirely from the Game of Thrones going on in King's Landing, and he's probably just went off to Pentos or Marine or something. But that leaves the question: is Sea Smoke still bound to him, or is Sea Smoke really free? And in this scene, we see that so Stefan, he almost gets Sea Smoke to submit, but then Sea Smoke just burns him and another dragon tamer. And it was such a loss. Like, I was prepared for him to die because I'd read some spoilers, so I knew about it. But just still seeing it on screen, it's kind of a gut punch because now Rhaenyra is down another Queen's Guard, and her biggest problem is still not solved of getting new Dragon Riders. So they have to try again. But you know they found Sir Stefan, just like he was like a needle in a haystack, and finding another needle in a haystack, it's really not easy. So there is the point where they're probably going to get some bastards to come in rather than people of noble descent through marriage. And I believe that is going to be a huge story in the next couple episodes. I hope to see it happen on screen, but so that happens. And then one of the really cool things that's been building up for like a couple episodes now is Rhaenyra is being advised by Massaria on how to deal with the political stuff because there really is no one else who can do that for her. Massaria knows the workings of King's Landing. She knows the people. She knows the royals fairly well as a spy master, and no one else on the council can really compare to her experiences or her knowledge. Because as we see in this episode, or like the last episode, Corlys is chosen as the new Hand of the Queen. He accepts in this episode, but we don't really get to see him do much, and he can't really step in as a spy master really. So that's where Massaria's strength lies. And so to build off of that, Massaria has been counseling Rhaenyra on how to manipulate the situation to her benefit. And we saw in the last episode that they send an agent, one of Rhaenyra's handmaids, to King's Landing to talk with Massaria's agents there and to stir up the people pretty much. And in this episode, there are scenes where those malcontents, so to speak, they are spreading the the lie or the truth, depending on how you look at it, that the royals in the Red Keep, they're feasting every day and they're celebrating what is going on. They've already had one huge celebration for the Prince Regent, and now there's going to be another one, and so on and so forth. And then later on in the episode, we see this one random person from King's Landing who's working on the beach near the keep. He's picking stuff up or something, and then he sees a boat come in with Rhaenyra's colors, and it's laden with food. And he's just like, what the hell? And then, he just happens to look up, and he sees in the distance that there are more boats coming, which was like, that's like, one of the best political moves I've seen in this season and pretty much, the entire show so far. Because the situation in King's Landing is so bad, right? The people have no food. They have no supplies. We've seen this resentment and malcontent. It's been building up all season. And one of the major characters we have for that are Hugh the Hammer, who's one of the big name blacksmiths in the city. We've seen his family suffering all season. And, it all works with this. Because now there's no more trade coming in or going because Aemon has already closed the city's gates. So the only supplies coming in are the sheep and stuff for the dragons. And the people who have, they have no meat, they have very little in the way of food in the first place. They see all these sheep coming in by the cartloads. They hear all these rumors of parties and extravagance in the Red Keep. And suddenly, Rhaenyra, the true heir of Viserys Targaryen, she is sending food to King's Landing. She's sending food for the Smallfolk. And, she is the true heir. She still cares about her people. And, yes, the people are being manipulated, horribly so. by both sides. But this was a very good political move for them because Aemon, he doesn't really trust Laris, so he's not really paying attention to whatever Laris tells him. And Laris, he's on like on his own agenda or something right now. So that is like they are just dropping the ball so hard on this. You know, we see earlier on the season that Aegon is like, he's listening to the small folk. He's promising them some kind of relief. No one knows when that relief is going to come, but, he at least hears the people. There's like some kind of a valve that's being turned to let the steam off. But Aemon is like, he's completely different. He doesn't give a rat's ass about any of this. He just cares about the war. And that's going to bite him in the ass so hard. It bites the royals pretty hard in the ass. This episode, even. Because towards the end, there's a scene where Alicent takes Helena to the Great Set to pray for the souls of the dead, the family members, and, just pray in general. And a riot breaks out in the city when Rhaenyra's food ships arrive. And they get caught up in that riot, and the people see them coming out of the Great Sept, and they, basically try to rush them. And, like, I cannot believe how much trauma Helena is being made to suffer. Last season was bad enough in so many ways, but this season, she's lost her son. She watched him being murdered. She's seen her brother husband, Aegon, being laid low so bad. The funeral march for her son was horrific for her. And now there's this fourth time, she has so much trauma being dumped on her. And it was uncomfortable to watch from her perspective or watch it happen to her. And, however, that kind of balances out with the fact that, Alicent is also caught up in that, in the whole thing. And, people are yelling at her, fish queen, or something. And then, she has an injury on her arm in the same place that she injures Rhaenyra last season. And, there's like karma is coming back to take a huge bite out of Alicent this season. And I'm like, yes. But yes, Helena, stop trauma dumping her. Please. I'm begging the writers, please stop doing that. Helena is the one person in the show who should, just be completely taken out of the picture as, with anything evil happening to her. She doesn't deserve anything. Has literally been the most abused person on the show. And man, I just cannot it's so hard to see her scenes because, she has that gift of foresight, although like all the others, she really can't make sense of it. Or I should say unlike those others. She can't really make sense of it until the events actually happen and then, there's probably some kind of a switch that goes off in her mind about it. But, she's the most mistreated character on the show. So, that's that. And then, we come to Harrenhal. Like I said earlier, the Harrenhal story got a little bit better in this episode. It still wasn't the best, and I still think that it's the biggest morass of the season so far. But we did get some good stuff happening because we actually see, like with last week's episode, we do see Daemon trying to fight off the influence that Harrenhal is dumping on him. And because now it's like, things are coming to a head for him, it seems like. This episode, he deals with trauma and, his messed up past with his brother. And they really try to make you see that, that Daemon is learning something. You feel like he's learning something, although given his actions, it's more like, he's still thinking about number one. He doesn't really give a damn, but he is starting to accept some of his faults and accept some of the other stuff that he's done and, trying to make sense of all of it. And given what happened in last week's episode with him, I much prefer this week's episode because last week was like super uncomfortable, even just from like narrative point of view. But this week, things were better. Although I think he's also starting to turn on Simon Strong because he blames him for what's happening to his mind rather than the malign influence of Paranol itself. And he talks to Alice, and I thought Alice's character as well took a turn because up until now she's just been like this spooky kind of witch character, but now this week a lot of what she said was like it was like good advice, and I'm like, so what is really going on here? Because they introduce her as something else, and the story carries on like that. And on this episode, there's kind of like a switch happens, and I'm like, okay, I like where this is going, but I'm not really sure I understand it. But all the same, I thought it was a really good scene with Alice in this episode, and even later on when we learned that Lord Grover Tully is dead, and his son Oscar Tully is now the Lord Paramount of the Riverlands, and they even asked Sir Simon, Lord Simon Strong, Sir Simon Strong, I don't know, whatever he's a knight or not. He asked him, and what was the manner of his passing? And Simon Strong says, he was quite old, my lord. But it references back to like 2 episodes, 3 episodes ago, where they summoned the Blackwoods and the Brackens to Harrenhal, and Blackwood, the current Lord Blackwood, I believe, he no, not Blackwood. He's Damon summons Oscar Tully to Harrenhal, and when he arrives, he's just a young kid, and he can't really speak with authority because his grandfather, Robert Tully, is still the lord of the house. And Damon tells him, just mother him with a pillow, get it over with, take charge. And now we find that Robert Tully is dead, so it's kind of a neat callback there, which was like it was a nice. I wouldn't say comic relief exactly, but it was a nice way to let out the steam of his story in this episode. So we'll see what happens there, but so that's really the whole episode, and it was a little bit better than last week's episode. The pacing was a little bit better. The stories are moving towards a conclusion. Even Harrenhal, even though I don't like it that much, but because right now we're getting way too much, you could say exposition. We're getting way too much, talking, talking, and talking. There needs to be more action. It's already a short season, and we need some major stuff. Which is why I like this one because not only did we have that things are finally moving forwards in the Riverlands with the death of Grover Tully, and you know Damon is pretty much pissed off at Alice and Simon Strong, and then even in King's Landing there's a riot that happens, and this is all building up. If you know some of the spoilers for what's to come, you know that, and I talked about it last week as well. A really big event is going to happen either in the next episode, maybe it will be the last episode of the season, episode 8. But I think we're definitely getting that happening this season. It's not going to be left off till the season 3. And oh yes, I forgot. My bad. Sorry. The final scene, the final sequence rather of this episode is Visaria and Rhaenyra talking, and they're trying to work out what to do next. And Rhaenyra shares some of her frustrations she's having with her small council and being forced to sit in Dragonstone and let the war happen in the war without any of her input on the battlefield and everything else that's happening. And then there's a moment of connection between them, and then they kiss. And while I didn't quite see the build up in the previous episodes for that, I definitely can see kind of like, how could we get there? Because she's the only one who's offering her some comfort. And, she's the one who understands Rhaenyra. So Rhaenyra feels that connection to her. Because, with Jace, She's having to keep him tempered, and he is resisting her authority. Her small council resists her authority. She even slaps one of her small counselors in this episode. I was like, whoa. It was a girl boss moment, but like, whoa. You know, she shouldn't be doing that because, as we've seen, people in Westeros, they hate female rulers. And I'm thinking that, this guy, he's going to do some nasty stuff down the line. He's going to want his revenge. But, finally, Rhaenyra gets to let off for some of her own steam. And, so many ways. And that was really good stuff. And then, while, they're busy, having their emotional moment, one of her, I'm not sure if it's one of her Queen's Guard who comes in or some other senior person who comes in, but she gets the news that Sea Smoke has taken off and Sea Smoke has a rider, and we see in the scenes before this, right before this one, of Sea Smoke, leaving Dragonstone and he's hunting Adam of Hull. Adam of Hull is the brother of Alan Hull, who is, we know for sure that these two are bastards of Corlys. Alan definitely is, Adam probably as well, but there's that whole thing happening, and he like there have been some like brief scenes early in the season where we see Sea Smoke flying up in up in the sky or whatever, and Adam is down on the ground, and he looks up, sees him. I never really understood that it was Sea Smoke because I can't really distinguish the dragons from each other really. My fault, obviously. But in the scene before this one, it's like Sea Smoke goes to hunt Adam, and he chases him, and we don't understand exactly what he's doing, especially if you're not familiar with the story already. But so Adam is going to be the next dragon rider that Rhaenyra has. He takes over Sea Smoke. But once again, going back to what I said with Sir Stefan, how does the bond between a dragon rider and the dragon work? Because we as the audience know that Laenor is still alive. Nobody else knows other than Rhaenyra and Daemon. So, how does that work? Can a dragon bond to more than two riders at the same time? Or if he believes that his rider is dead, the bond is broken? It's an interesting question, and I'm not sure if it was a good idea to have Sea Smoke being bonded, being shown here in that respect, because this question is not answered anywhere in this episode, at least. Hopefully, the next one. But we see Rhaenyra get the news that Sea Smoke has been seen with a dragon rider, and both Mysaria and Rhaenyra freak out. It was like, well, the Blacks haven't done anything. So did someone from Team Green come in and tame? I mean, we have Aemon's example from season 1 when he tames Vhagar as a kid. So that's in their mind, and Rhaenyra's like, she's just done with all this BS, and pretty much the final scene of the show is Rhaenyra flying out on Syrax, and I was like, oh my god. He's riding a dragon once again. Let's do it. Because one of the very first scenes in the show in season 1, episode 1, is Rhaenyra riding Syrax. And that was a pretty good scene. And we're finally coming back to that. And anytime I see more dragons on the screen, that's like good stuff. But anyways, we know that Adam is gonna be the next rider. He definitely has to be Corlys's bastard as well. And next episode coming, this weekend, we know that these two are going to meet, and the conversation should be interesting because Rhaenyra has no idea who this guy is. I doubt even Corlys knows about Adam. He knows that Alan is his bastard son, and he's trying to raise him up, in his own way, honor Rhaenys' last wish to him. But he does. I don't think he knows about Adam. So, and Adam doesn't have the signature white hair of the Velaryons either. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that was a great point to end this episode on. you know, I had a really good feeling throughout this episode because there were so many times where I was like, yes, there's a lot of moments where you got to cheer for the characters on the screen, or something bad happened to a character who really deserved it. So you're like, yes, that's happened. So in a lot of ways, this is a feel good episode in that respect. But next week's episode, it's um, the one before the finale. It's the penultimate episode. So there have to be more sparks. They have to continue on this strong streak they build up in this episode. And I'm really looking forward to it. The actors were all great as usual. The story was fairly good. I'm sure there's some criticisms to be had, here and there. But overall, I'm really liking how contained everything feels, and there's going to be some stuff next episode, I believe, with more dragons being tamed for the blacks. We saw some little, hints and stuff of that in this one with Reyna. So hopefully, something good is going to happen. And I'm sure there will be tragedies aplenty. So we'll look out for that. And, that's it for me with this episode, guys. Thank you for sticking around to watch the video so far. Please like it. Please subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys soon. Cheers. Bye.